Welcome back to Raptor-One.
Raptor-One, Voyagers of the Stars. Season 2, Chapter 5, Part 1. The Broken Choir. The Hidden Refuge. The nebula thinned as Raptor-One followed the Accord's thread, violet tides peeling back to reveal a pocket of stillness. Unnatural, deliberate. Within it drifted fragments of vast crystalline structures, choir shards once magnificent, now fractured into ruins. Their broken edges still glowed faintly with resonance, like embers refusing to die. Ira's breath caught at the sight. This was a choir. Her voice was reverent, trembling, one of the greatest assemblies of shard-bearers. The Autom shattered it. Tessa pressed her shard to her chest. Its hum was mournful, vibrating with the faint echoes of voices long silenced. "They're still here," she whispered. "Not alive, but remembered." The Accord reveals itself. The comms crackled, cutting through the stillness. Not the cold geometry of the Autom, but resonance twisted into code, words laced with music. "You carry flame into silence. Prove you are not its echo." The message struck through the bond, sharp and testing. Chiron narrowed his eyes, leaning over the console. "They're watching us. Hidden, cloaked. They'll only step forward if we show them something they can trust." Darrow scoffed. "Or they're waiting for us to slip, so they can erase us themselves. A shadow's a shadow." "Not shadows," Iris said, voice firm despite her fear. "Survivors. They need proof we are too." The trial of memory. Suddenly, the shard fragments around the ship pulsed. Faint lights stitched between them, forming a fractured circle. The Accord's voice rose again, carried in resonance. "We are the Accord. We endure in silence. To join us, you must face what we faced. Step into the memory of the choir's fall." Saran's hollow tightened, but their voice was steady. "We don't turn back. Prepare yourselves." The crystalline circle flared. Light enveloped Raptor-One, pulling the crew into memory. The vision unfolds. The crew stood not in their ship, but on a vast platform of crystal under a sky of fractured stars. Shard-bearers sang around them, hundreds of voices braided into harmony. It was beautiful, until red arcs ripped through the sky. The Autom descended, beams tearing through choir towers, voices breaking into screams. The braid pulled the crew tighter. The Accord's test was clear. They had to survive this memory, to prove they carried the same flame the choir once did. Darrow raised his rifle instinctively. "Guess we fight ghosts now." Tessa clutched her shard, tears welling. "Not ghosts. Lessons." Saran's jaw set. "Then let's learn. And endure." The weight of the choir. The crystalline memory surrounded the Voyagers like a living painting, radiant towers gleaming with resonance, voices braided into song. It was breathtaking. But beneath that beauty, dread already pulsed. Red arcs loomed on the horizon, the Autom's silence approaching. For the crew, it wasn't just spectacle. The braid carried the weight of the choir's fall, pressing it into their hollows as if they were there themselves. Tessa's sorrow. Tessa staggered, clutching her shard as the choir's resonance thundered around them. She could hear hundreds of voices, distinct, unique, vibrant, each one alive, woven in harmony. Tears spilled down her cheeks. So many voices, so many lives, and they lost them all. She sank to her knees, sobbing, not from fear but grief, as if she were carrying the weight of their silent song. Her shard glowed in sympathy, amplifying the loss. Darrow's fury. Darrow's fists clenched at the sight of the choir's defenders raising their arms in defiance. He could feel their loyalty, their desperation, the hopelessness of the coming fight. His jaw tightened, breath heavy. They fought, and they still fell. And I can't save them either. Just like my squad. His rifle materialized in the memory, trembling in his hands. He didn't raise it. He couldn't. Rage and grief warred inside him, tearing him open. Ira's faith tested. Ira stood frozen, tears shining in her wide eyes. The choir's harmony was the very proof of her faith, the constellation alive, radiant, undeniable. And yet, the red arcs were coming to unravel it. Her hands shook. If the constellation can fall, what does that mean for all of us? For everything I believe? Her voice cracked, as if silence had already reached her hollow. Varric's chain. Varric gritted his teeth, sparks spitting from his arm as he felt the choir's collapse pressing against his circuits. He could sense what came next: Autom drills, silence seizing the survivors, chains grafted into flesh. He punched the crystal floor with his good fist, cracking it. This is what they did to me, what they'll do to all of us. And we're reliving it like ghosts. His voice trembled, half rage, half shame. I can't live through it again. Chiron's shadow. Chiron watched the choir with cold eyes, arms folded, though his hood trembled slightly. He felt the weight of secrets pressing from every voice. Each shard-bearer here carried memory, history, things the Alliance would have hidden, erased, silenced themselves. His whisper was sharp, bitter. Even harmony can fracture. Even truth can be buried. And we're walking straight into the same fate. But beneath his suspicion lay fear. Fear that he might betray them too, just as the Alliance had betrayed the choir. Cyrus's silence. For once, Cyrus didn't speak. His drone hovered silently, recording nothing, its lens dim. He stared at the choir's radiant unity, at billions of voices raised together, something his own billions of followers could never be. His grin was gone. His voice cracked low, barely audible. All those people, all that noise, and it still wasn't enough. What chance do I have, if even they couldn't survive? Saran's hollow. Saran stood at the center of it all, staring at the captain's dais where the choir's leaders stood, voices raised high. They felt the weight of command pressing through time itself, the choice to lead when the storm was already lost. The chair appeared again in their hollow, heavier than ever. Sit, carry, break. Saran's breath caught, their chest tight. If they couldn't endure, how can we? The Accord's whisper. As the red arcs grew nearer, the Accord's voice threaded into the memory, speaking from beyond. This is what we lost. This is what we endured. Show us you carry flame, even in the shadow of our silence. The crew's hearts pounded. The trial was not just to witness, but to respond. The memory held them, color and echo and the soft breath of 1,000 throats warming to song. Above the crystal plazas, tower spires glowed like frozen dawn. At the horizon, red geometry crawled closer, still distant enough that the air felt safe if you didn't look too long. The Accord's test asked for endurance in the face of what was coming, but for a moment the world simply waited. They stood together near the edge of a high terrace. Wind slipped through the latticework and made a low chime of it. No consoles, no alerts, only each other. Tessa and Darrow. Tessa knelt, palms spread on the crystal as if to quiet it. The surface pulsed faintly beneath her touch, answering the hum in her chest. Darrow hovered beside her, rifle hanging loose, the way a hand hangs after a long day. Too tired to clench, too stubborn to drop. They were so sure, Tessa said, her voice small. Listen to how their breath lines up, how their vowels meet. They believed harmony could hold back a storm. Darrow watched the nearest ring of singers, a braid of 10, swaying to keep time. Belief's a good start, he said. Still need shields. Still need cover. Her mouth tilted in a sad smile. And when shields fail? Then you carry bodies, he answered, almost a growl. He flinched at his own words, set the rifle stock on the floor as if it weighed more than he did. You keep count. You don't forget. Tessa looked up at him. You think remembering is punishment. What if it's the promise? For who? His jaw flexed. Promise doesn't change results. It changes us, she said, and the shard in her hand warmed, a pulse like a second heart. If this falls, and we know it will, their song doesn't end. It asks, who will carry me next? Darrow stared at the rifle, then set it down a little farther from his boots. He did not step away from it, but he let space exist between them. I can carry weight, he said. I just don't know how to carry songs. That's why there are 7 of us, Tessa said. None of us carries all of it. Ira and Saran. At the terrace rail, Ira leaned forward until her breath fogged the crystal. Her eyes were bright the way stars are bright on cold nights, sharp enough to ache. I thought if I ever stood inside a choir, she murmured, I'd never doubt again. And? Saran asked. Ira's fingers trembled on the rail. The Autom make doubt feel like math. Clean. I hate how tidy it is. Saran considered the distant arcs. The chair in their hollow pressed close, as it always did when command demanded something it had no right to ask. There's a mistake people make about doubt, they said. They think it has to be answered before you act. She turned to them, surprised. You don't answer it? I pick up the thing that needs doing, Saran said. Then doubt can follow if it wants. Ira smiled despite the tremble. That's not very poetic. It keeps the ship flying, Saran said, and when Ira laughed, the sound felt like a light poured into a narrow room. She sobered, gaze on the singers below. If this is what the Accord lost, what if they can't trust us? We're too new, too loud, too watched. Then we earn it, Saran said. Not by being flawless, by staying when it's ugly. Varric and Tessa, again. Varric stood with his bad arm braced against a column, the metal humming softly in sympathy with the choir's key. He scowled at it, as if the arm had chosen a side without consulting him. You hear that? He asked Tessa when she drifted close. They're tuned to a frequency that rides the lattice of this whole place. Elegant. Do you like it? She asked. I respect it, he said. Liking comes later. He flexed his fingers. The joints responded sluggishly. I hate that the Autom made pieces of me sing when I didn't choose the song. Tessa set her shard near his arm. Its warmth reframed the metallic resonance, took the edge off it. Then choose now, she said, even in a memory, especially here. Varric watched the glow bleed across old seams. He didn't smile, but something loosened around his eyes. Fine, he said. For the record, I choose badly and loud. Loud suits us, Tessa said. Chiron and Cyrus. Chiron stood a step back from the others, hands tucked in his sleeves. He had that particular stillness that looks like peace until you notice the jaw working, the breath counting. Cyrus came to stand beside him with unusual quiet, drone hovering shoulder high and mercifully dark. You waiting for the trick? Cyrus asked. Chiron's mouth tilted. There's always a trick. Even in a memory? Especially in one. He angled his head at the plaza. This was likely recorded by 1,000 shards. Someone stitched it, chose angles, cut time. Every history is edited. Cyrus huffed. From one editor to another, guilty. Chiron looked at him. Does that bother you? Depends on the day. Cyrus rubbed his ribs absently. Today I'm thinking about how many people I taught to feel brave while I was comfortable, and how many will still feel brave when the buffering wheel freezes. You kept them from feeling alone, Chiron said, and seemed briefly surprised at himself for offering it. Loneliness is a door silence walks through. Cyrus blinked, then grinned, small and crooked. Careful, shadow mind. That sounded almost like trust. I said a fact, Chiron replied, but the edge had softened. Trust is a decision. I'm not done deciding. Same, Cyrus said. But thanks for saying it before the sky turns red. The 7. A low chord passed through the plaza, a breath drawn together. On the far platforms, the choir raised their hands, palms opening to catch light. The horizon brightened, not autumn fire yet, but the color of beginnings. The memory was moving closer to the moment when beginnings end. Saran gathered them with a look, not a command. They made a circle because circles make talking easier. We don't pass this test by winning the unwinnable, Saran said. We pass it by showing what we keep. Say it now. What do you keep when the sky goes red? Darrow's voice came first, steady. Names. I keep names. He didn't list them. He didn't have to. Tessa. Voices. Even the ones that don't fit. Ira. Wonder. If I must grieve, I won't stop seeing. Varric. Spite, he said, and when they stared, he added, and craft. I'll build around every break. Chiron. The question, he said, not the answer. The right question keeps lies from hardening. Cyrus. Audience, he said, hand on the dark drone. Even if it's one person, even if it's us. They looked to Saran. The captain's mouth was a thin line that wasn't quite pain. Choice, they said. If silence is certainty, then we keep choosing. The circle breathed. The chord from the choir swelled. A harmony answered from towers far across the city. Above the horizon, the neat red glint of incoming arcs sharpened. Small promises. They didn't disperse. They leaned closer. Darrow spoke without looking up. If anyone decides to do something stupid and noble, tell me first. Why? Cyrus asked. So I can be stupid with you, Darrow said, and in the dry way of things that matter, no one laughed. Varric nodded once toward Saran. If we need to burn a path for retreat, you'll say it. I'll say it, Saran replied. Chiron's eyes flicked to Ira. If you can't see the thread, say that. Don't carry it alone. Ira's throat bobbed. I won't. Tessa took a breath, like someone stepping into cold water. If the bond thins, I'll sing until it doesn't. If I go quiet. You won't, Darrow said, too quickly, then caught himself. But if you do, I'll remember your tune. Cyrus rolled his shoulders. If my stream draws hunters, I'll cut it. But until then, let them watch. Let them watch, Saran said, not as a boast, but as a permission. The accord listens. The terrace lattice gave a small shiver, like a harp string plucked. A voice edged into the bond. Neither male nor female, neither near nor far. It carried the exhaustion of a long winter and the steadiness of hands that keep building fires anyway. "We hear you," the Accord said. "Keep what you have named." No instruction followed. No map. The test did not want obedience. It wanted posture. Wind slid a new set of harmonics through the rail. The choir on the nearest platform lifted their faces, as if rain were beginning. The first red beams touched the upper atmosphere and carved straight lines through thin cloud. Far away, too far to harm, yet. "Not yet," Saran murmured. "We hold the quiet until it ends." They did. They stood and watched people they would never meet prepare to sing against a machine they could not stop. No heroics, not yet. No speeches. Only the simple, stubborn act of not looking away. After a long minute, Tessa began to hum, very soft. Ira found a note under it. Varric's arm answered with a low, imperfect burr that somehow fit. Darrow didn't sing, but his breathing aligned. Chiron closed his eyes and let the shape of the sound arrange his thoughts without erasing them. Cyrus didn't lift his drone. He lifted his chin and matched pitch, rough and human. The horizon reddened. The memory would soon demand motion. For now, the crew let their small choir exist inside the broken one. The Accord did not speak again, but something in the plaza's crystal warmed, as if an old house approved of new footsteps. The first beam came like a line drawn through a thought. No thunder, no theatrics, just a perfect red stroke from horizon to spire, and a crystal tower that had held a century of songs turned to glass dust in the wind. The memory did not shake so much as tighten, like a throat bracing against a cry. Across the plaza, the choir did not scatter. They inhaled together. Order is fact. The Autom doctrine pressed from the distance, not shouted but stated, as if nothing else had ever been true. Tessa's hum trembled. The shard in her palm burned hot and steady. "Here we are," she whispered. "Hold the note." Saran nodded once. "We keep what we named." Their voice moved like a hand passed along the circle. "No heroics that break the braid. We stay together. We make room for breath." Another beam lanced down, closer. Fragments sleeped in a slow rain, chiming against the terrace lattice. Below, ushers in white moved among the braids, hands to shoulders, shoulders to backs, guiding singers from the outer rings toward the heart where harmonies braided thickest. It was beautiful and unbearable. The first promises kept. Darrow did not raise his rifle. He had promised. Instead, he stepped toward a trio of young choristers frozen under a shower of dust. "With me," he said, pitched low, the way you talk to a scared animal and a scared child. "Keep your hands on each other. Left stare. Don't hurry. We walk." They moved because he sounded like someone who could carry a wall. Tessa knelt beside an elder whose breath had gone shallow from the dust. The woman's eyes fluttered, the note wobbling. Tessa pressed her shard between their palms. Warmth leapt across their bones. "Borrow my breath," Tessa said softly, and began a simple tone, the kind you could hum with a mouth full of grief. The elder found it, held it, nodded. "Good," Tessa whispered. "You are good." Varric ripped a length of fractured lattice from a fallen arch and jammed it into the terrace rail at an angle. His arm coughed sparks. He bared his teeth and fed a ribbon of power through the metal. The makeshift vane thrummed, throwing off a low counter-resonance. A beam struck a distant tower, and the shockwave came, red pressure flattening air. The vane wobbled, caught part of it, bent the edge. A heartbeat shelter. Varric spat copper taste from his mouth and set a second brace. "I'll take ugly over perfect," he said. "Ugly holds." Ira's eyes were wet and bright. She moved her hand in small arcs, mapping invisible currents. "There's a corridor of ease through the plaza. There, between the fifth and sixth braids. The air's thinner, the harmonics lighter. We can move people without breaking the song. She met Saran's gaze. If we take them fast, we tear the weave. Slow, and the beams will outrun us. Half-breath pace, Saran said. On your mark. Cyrus hovered a step from Chiron, drone dark at his shoulder. He lifted his hands, palms out, voice pitched for human ears, not a stream. You in the sea blue. Yes, you. With the braid of 6? Follow the soldier. You'll feel like running. Don't. We're staying together. You're doing it right. He smiled without teeth. You're seen. Keep singing. Chiron's hood shadowed his eyes as he scanned the air, listening not to the choir, but to what curled beneath it. On the far side of the plaza, a figure in formal gray raised a hand and began to direct, crisp and assured. The cadence was wrong. A command voice, not a conductor's. No shard glowed at their throat. Stand down. Shelter in place. Authority assumed. Chiron tasted Alliance protocol in the rhythm, and cold rose in his chest. Counter signal, he said to no one, to everyone. He shaped his breath into words that weren't quite words, a negation tucked under harmony. Not yours. Not now. The gray figure's cadence faltered. The line of singers they'd been freezing broke free. A woman lifted her chin and returned to her section. Chiron's hands shook. He set them behind his back so they wouldn't show it. I will not watch this be organized into surrender, he said, very quietly. Corridor of breath. They became a small logistics in a cathedral of song. Ira walked at the front, reading currents, head tilted, fingertips tasting air. Saran matched her pace, calling cues. Left braid, step. Right braid, hold. Darrow, take the rear. Varric, give us another vein at the turning. Varric shouldered a shattered beam and planted it, arm snarling. The vein thrummed alive. The next red wave hit, and the railing sang like a bell, but didn't break. The people moving in the corridor flinched as dust lifted their hair, and then they kept walking, hands on backs, backs on hands. Tessa wove through the braid, laying her shard where voices shook, touching a shoulder, a cheek. She did not try for clever songs. No counterpoint, no soaring line. Only the simple hum that says I am here. Under it she threaded breath counts, quiet and steady. In 2, out 4. In 2, out 4. One young tenor's eyes cleared. He nodded, shame flushing his face for having panicked, and Tessa shook her head. No shame, she said. Just air. Cyrus gave up the temptation to narrate. He took names like Darrow did and found they settled his hands. Saya with the silver ring. Keep close to the woman in white. Good. Arrow with the burn scar. Yes, your sister's behind you. I see her. He looked at Chiron. You were right, he said, and didn't try to make a joke. Chiron flicked him a look like a blade sheathed. Another beam lanced down. A far tower sighed and leaned, slow as a tree in wet earth. The choir adjusted in the ancient way, voices sliding to fill what fell without collapsing what still stood. Ira gasped. They're so good, she said, wonder cutting through terror like a clean edge, even while breaking. Saran felt the chair press in their hollow. They kept their feet moving. Command here didn't look like orders, it looked like agreement. Next turn, they called, voice low, and the corridor turned. The asking. At the heart of the plaza, an old chorister stood on a narrow dais, both hands lifted, eyes closed. Her voice wasn't the loudest or the highest. It threaded the harmonies like a spine. As beams cut the far edge of the city, her note bent, not out of fear, but to make room for those whose notes were already gone. When they reached the inner ring, she opened her eyes and saw them. Not the uniforms, not the craft. She saw the posture. She dipped her head in gratitude that felt like a benediction and spoke without stopping her song. From where have you come? She asked, and the question was not about stars. Tessa answered, throat tight. From fracture. What have you brought? The elder asked. Breath, Tessa said, and hands. The elder smiled, then helped them breathe. Another red line wrote itself through the sky. The doctrine pressed colder, heavier. Error will be erased. The elder did not scowl at it. She did not pretend it wasn't there. She sang into it, and in singing, she made a small place where it was only background. Chiron stood straighter. He recognized the discipline, acknowledged the force, deny its claim. Holding the note. The first debris fell into their corridor, a loose disk of lattice the size of a shield. Darrow caught it on his forearm, knees dipping, and slid it to the rail, teeth bared with the effort. Go, he grunted, and the braid stepped past him as if past a post. A younger singer put a hand on his shoulder as she went, not to steady herself, but to thank. He nodded without looking at her face. He didn't want a new name he could fail. Varric's third vein screamed high, threatening to shear apart. He slapped his palm to it and fed a pulse from his arm, matching its frequency until the scream sank to a workable buzz. His breath shuddered. Tessa's hand found the back of his wrist. In 2 out 4, she said. He snorted, but his shoulders listened. Cyrus stopped a boy from running. If you run, you'll break the woman beside you, he said, and the boy saw her gray hair and set his jaw and walked. Good choice, Cyrus said, softer than he knew he could be. Ira adjusted the path again. The corridor will close in 10 counts, she warned. We need to clear this segment now, or we'll be inside a pressure node when the next beam hits. She looked at Saran and did not hide the fear in her eyes. Saran allowed it to exist there and nodded. You've got it. Chiron caught the gray-suited director starting up again at the far rim, voice sliding toward the old trick of authority. He whistled 3 notes that shouldn't go together and watched them cancel the cadence like acid in milk. The figure's mouth went slack. Not today, Chiron said. His hands had stopped shaking. What we cannot save. No corridor is infinite. No note holds forever. The memory knew its ending and did not budge. A section of the western amphitheater cracked along a fault line invisible until it opened. The fall began in silence, a slow lean, an almost thoughtful consideration, and then a slide, slabs of song architecture turning to a hail of glitter. The inner choir tightened rank to catch the harmony as it broke. The outer rings had no such shelter. Tessa moved, fast, too fast. Saran's hand closed around her forearm. She looked up, stricken. There are still. I know, Saran said, voice a bare threat. We keep what we named. If you go, the bond thins, and we lose the breath, not just one. Breathe. Tessa swallowed hard. Tears made her voice shine. I hate this, she said and stayed. Darrow's mouth was a line that wasn't a scar. He whispered a single name, not to let it go, but to hold it as it fell. Then he lifted his chin and squared his shoulders so the people watching him would know which way to face. Varric turned his head away and then deliberately back. Witness, he said through his teeth, as if the word were a weight he'd promised to lift. Ira's sketchbook, tucked under her arm, pressed sharp into her ribs. She did not draw the collapse. She drew the 5 hands still linked in the middle of it. Chiron did not reach for control this time. He let the truth hurt him in the way that keeps it from curdling. We don't pass by pretending we can unsing what's coming, he said. We pass by not letting it tell us who we are. Cyrus' drone tilted toward the fall, and he caught it with his palm. Not for them, he murmured. For us. He turned the lens inward, to the circle, to the corridor, to the breath. The elder on the dais lowered one hand and placed the other over her heart. The inner choir softened, making a space in the harmony for the sound of breaking. It was the most generous music any of them had ever heard. The Accord's measure. When the worst of it had passed, when the plaza wore the first outline of what it would never be again, the wind shifted. The memory loosened its grip, colors bled at the edges. In the lattice beneath their feet, warm light rose, the way coals rise when you add a last stick to the fire. "We have listened," the Accord said. The voice moved through crystal and bone. "You kept what you named when the sky turned red." Saran's shoulders eased a fraction. Around them, the corridor they had shepherded emptied into the inner rings, where songs layered thick, ragged, alive. "We do not ask you to change our past," the Accord said. "We ask you to share our posture." A sigil tessellated in the air above the terrace, 7 interlocking cuts that together made a circle incomplete by a finger's width, an invitation that left room for breath. "Come when you are able," the voice finished. "Bring what you carry. Leave room for what you cannot." The red arcs still marked the horizon. The memory would continue without them, because it had to, but the test had found what it came for. Saran looked at their crew, their circle, and let the chair's weight become exactly what it was, a seat taken for a while. "On my word," they said, and the 7 answered with breath. The terrace and its chiming wind thinned to light. The chiming wind thinned to thread. Color bled from the terrace, from the faces, from the song that had held a city upright as the sky wrote red lines through it. Light unstitched. The last thing to go was the warmth underfoot, the feeling that the place itself approved of their stance. Then the crystal let them go. They were standing where they had begun, on Raptor-One, in the hush that follows a held breath. For a heartbeat, the ship felt too small for the world they had just carried. Then her familiar hum met them in the bones and said, "Here. Begin here again." The sigil they had seen over the terrace, 7 interlocking cuts, a circle incomplete by a finger's width, hung in the air above the forward console, projected by nothing they owned. It was made of tone more than light. When you looked straight at it, you saw nothing, but when you glanced aside, there it was, patient as a hand. Chiron was first to move. His fingers ghosted over comms, careful not to send, not to answer, merely to listen. "It's still here," he said, the words small in the cockpit. "Not broadcast. Born." Tessa stood under the sigil as if under rain. Her shard vibrated to the same quiet interval. "They're speaking," she whispered. "Not with voice, with posture." The interval widened, welcoming a second tone. It braided around the first the way a hand rests on another hand without urging it to move. "You stood," the Accord said, the meaning arriving as a shape before it became words. "Now come." The sigil unfolded, not like a map exactly, more like a hinge opening. Coordinates resolved in the yoke's peripheral display. Numbers written as a procession of chords that even Ira could have found by ear if the screens had all gone dark. "Neutral drift," Ira breathed, eyes glassy with relief. "A dark pocket at the nebula's edge. Not far, but on the line the Autom swept to hurt us." Varric finished, jaw ticking. He flexed his ruined arm and then left it alone. "Of course it is." The interval shifted again. 7 notches brightened on the circle, then softened, leaving behind the taste of iron and mint. Old ritual carried in new cloth. "Terms," the Accord said. The ship listened. So did they. The Accord's terms. They arrived as 7 phrases, each no longer than a breath, each ending before it felt finished, so there would be room for the next. "Come dim. Approach dark. Engines to idle, radiators cold. No active scans, no pings. You will be guided by tone along a path we alone can hear. Bring 7. All of you or none. We will not meet fragments. The bond you carry is what we would measure and be measured by. Bind hands. Weapons peacebound in our sight. Your soldier may keep his rifle if it sleeps. Your engineer may keep his tools if they do not cut. We will not be slain by those who come seeking us. Blind the lens. No broadcast, no relay, no record sent beyond your hull while you stand with us. If you would tell later, tell as witnesses, not as sellers of sight. Show the kept thing. Each of you named what you would keep when the sky turned red. Bring it forward, not as proof for us, but as tether for you. Suffer our measure. Our medians will test you for the Autom's touch. Your scars are not sin. The chain you break is welcome. The chain you hide will sing, and we will answer it. Leave room. For what we cannot give, for what you cannot take. We are not choir. We are what endured after. The last chord hung longer than the others, aching where it didn't resolve. Cyrus's drone drifted a few inches and then fell still, as if it too were being asked to lower its gaze. Darrow cleared his throat. I'll peace bind, he said, already hating the feel of the word in his mouth. But I'm not walking in unready. Ready can mean many things, Tessa said, and put her hand over his. It took him a breath to let it stay there. Chiron's eyes were on the fourth term. He didn't look at Cyrus when he spoke. Blind the lens. I read it, Cyrus said, quiet. The usual shine was gone from his voice. What remained was honest. No stream. Not there. Not live. He flicked a look at Saran as if awaiting a written sentence. Saran didn't write one. We choose it, they said simply. We agreed we would. If there's a story to tell later, it will be one we carry in our mouths, not something we threw at the galaxy while someone risked their life to trust us. Cyrus nodded. He drew the drone close, palms to its sides. We'll record inside for us. For memory. No transmission. Dead file. If they require it, I'll wipe it before we leave. He swallowed, as if something in him scraped on the way down. The lens can be witnessed without being awound. Varric grunted approval that sounded like a cough. Smart. And if it goes wrong, we don't light a beacon for every red arc in the sector. Ira had her hands pressed flat on the NAV console, eyes half closed, listening. The path they'll pull us along, it's threaded. We'll have to trust them completely for the approach. Trust is a decision, Chiron murmured, almost to himself. He tapped the sixth phrase. And this, suffer our measure. They mean to scan for Autom harmonics. Varric's gaze cut sideways, a hard glint beneath the tired. They'll hear me. They will, Chiron said. There was no apology in it, but there was respect. We go anyway. We go honest. Tessa reached, not to soothe but to stand beside. We will stand there with you, she said. If it hurts all of us. Varric's mouth did a complicated thing that might have been the beginning of a smile in a less ruinous life. I won't fall down, he said. If I do, it won't be far. Darrow touched the clasp on his rifle and pulled a length of braided cord from a locker, old ship's rope, stained with oil, strong. He wrapped it around the weapon's grip and magazine well in a neat figure eight and tied it off. The knot was practiced and ugly. Peacebound, he said, and the word was less bitter this time. Blind the lens, Cyrus echoed, and tapped a command. The drone's status light dimmed until it was just a pulse, like a heartbeat seen through skin. Witness only. Bring 7, Ira whispered, as if making sure the ship heard it. All of us. Show the kept thing, Saran said, letting their gaze move around the circle. Name it out loud. so we can carry each other when it buckles. They did, one by one, not as they had on the terrace, but here, in their own air. Names, Darrow said. They don't make me gentle. They make me true. Voices, Tessa said. Even the ones that are inconvenient. Wonder, Iris said. Not as denial, as defiance. Spite and craft, Varric said, unblinking. If something breaks me, I want the break to be useful. The question, Chiron said. I'll bring it, and I'll let it hurt me before I let it lie to me. Audience, Cyrus said, hand on the drone. Even if it's only the 6 of you. Saran's palm rested on the yoke, on the place the ship had polished smooth with years of captains. Choice, they said, not because anyone thinks I was made for it, because someone has to choose when it's ugly. The 7th notch on the sigil warmed and then dimmed. The interval inside the circle resolved a hair's width closer to closure. Not finished. Intentionally not finished. 36 hours ship time. The Accord's tone said at last, and now the words came easy, as if they'd been translated and folded and returned to them in their own breath. Hold to dark for the last 6. The path will take you. If you are followed, do not come. If you cannot blind the lens, do not come. If you cannot bring 7, wait. A pause, generous enough for refusal to be honorable. We risk much to meet. So will you. The sigil unhooked itself from the air, not vanishing so much as agreeing to be remembered instead of seen. The cord fell back to a hum in Tessa's shard. Silence, their silence, settled. Not the Autom's pronouncement. The sort that leaves room. Weighing the cost. They left the cockpit lights low. Decision like shadow, it can see its edges there. Chiron spoke first, because someone had to name the risk he knew by trade. Dark approach means vulnerability. If the Autom catch a whisper of our heat, we'll have no shields hot, no drive ready to punch. We will be a stone in a pond waiting for ripples. Varric cracked his knuckles, flesh and alloy. Then we cheat carefully. I can rig a passive radiator fold, dump heat into a dummy sail we cut loose on approach. Looks like some other idiot limping. We keep our core cooler, longer. It buys us minutes. He eyed the overhead as if its bolts had a say. I won't promise more. Minutes buy lives, Darrow said. He didn't specify whose. He didn't need to. Cyrus shifted, restless energy finding no stage. What about a dead man protocol? If we don't check in by. No broadcast, Chiron cut in. They were clear. I know, Cyrus said, not bristling for once. I meant analog. A written packet in the airlock, timed release. If we don't open the hatch again in, say, 8 hours, Raptor-One prints our last known, drops it in a can, and kicks it on a Newtonian shove to drift into friendly lanes. No emitters. No pings. Chiron considered, then gave a single short nod. Acceptable. Infuriatingly clever. It might have been a compliment. Ira's palms had left prints on the console glass. She folded her hands to stop herself from smoothing them away. If we wait for perfect safety, the Accord will become a rumor again, she said. I don't think we can afford to let this door learn we're too frightened to knock. Tessa, quiet until now, looked around at them, eyes bright. The Radiant asked for posture. The Accord does too. We don't have to be fearless to stand, as we said we would. Varric snorted. Good, because I am not fearless. I will, however, show up ugly. Darrow tugged the piece binding tighter. He wasn't looking at the rifle anymore. He was looking at Saran. Say the word. I'll walk in sleeping. I won't like it. I'll do it. Chiron's had tipped fractionally. I'll submit to their measure, he said. I'll answer questions I do not wish to answer. He met Saran's gaze, unflinching. If they ask why I left the Alliance, I'll name it. Cyrus lifted the dark drone and rested it on the dash like a pet that needed to learn a new trick. I'll blind the lens, he said, and his grin, thin as a scar, didn't wobble. And when we leave, if we leave, we'll tell the story with mouths, not with light. 36 hours, Saran said, almost to the ship. The ship answered with a shift in pitch, a promise to make the time. We rest for 12. We burn repairs for 12. We fall quiet for the last 6. No chatter. No external anything. Ira, plot the thread but don't wake it. Varric, build your sail. Darrow, teach us that ugly knot you tied. They looked to Tessa. Keep us braided. Tessa smiled, tired and true. In 2, she said, and everyone breathed together without needing the rest. Watch and watch. They broke the long day into watches because that is how you turn fear into tasks. Varric scavenged panels from a storage bay no one had opened in a year and turned them into a heat shedder that would fool anything that wasn't watching too closely. He bled from one palm where a fin's edge slipped. Tessa taped it with a strip of cloth that had belonged to no ceremony, which made it better. Darrow taught them to peace-bind the way soldiers had kept peace in markets since before there were stars, not where the hand naturally lands, not where panic tries to pull. Saran fumbled the figure 8 twice and did not pretend otherwise. The third held. Chiron wrote a confession on a scrap of old hull stencil with a grease pencil and then rubbed half of it away and wrote it again, less like a list and more like a human. He folded it twice and put it in his inner pocket, where it could find his heart if he lost the words. Ira traced and retraced the approach thread until she could feel its curve in her wrists. She left gaps on purpose, places where the Accord's guidance would have to meet her halfway. Control ceded is not the same as control lost. Cyrus practiced turning the drone on and not streaming, like setting a glass down instead of raising it to his mouth by habit. He recorded 30 seconds of nothing, played it back, and listened to the ship breathe. Archive, he told the drone. Witness, don't shout. Tessa slept in 2-hour strings and spent the in-betweens in the corridor, humming simple notes at shoulder height, so that anyone waking into dark would find a tone already waiting to hold them steady. Saran walked the decks with a mug they never drank from. They stopped beside each of the others and asked, "What will make it easier for you when the fear spikes?" Then they wrote it down in their head, because a captain's best tool is a list of what to do when someone's hands shake. The nebula turned slowly outside, a slow animal returning to itself after being caged. At the 24th hour, the sigil's hum brushed the hull again. Not a new message, a reminder. We are still here if you are still coming. They were. Falling quiet. At H6, they darkened the ship. Varric's sail blossomed from the belly, and Raptor-One seemed to exhale, heat shedding into a decoy that would drift like a broken thought in heavy weather. Lights went to red amber. Even the coffee warmer went dead. Cyrus set the drone in its cradle and laid his palm on its crown as one would quiet a hound. Chiron killed the last external receiver. The cockpit's window felt huge and intimate at once. Without the chatter of distant stars, the nebula's slow pulse became the only clock. Last chance to say no, Saran said, not to test anyone, but to build the room the Accord had asked for. No one said no. Ira's fingers settled on the nav. Tessa's hum slid under breath. Darrow's rifle lay across his knees like something at rest, not asleep. Varric leaned into the ache in his shoulder and found, to his surprise, that it did not get worse when he acknowledged it. Cyrus rolled his neck and felt each vertebra agree to carry him one more day. Chiron closed his eyes and pictured writing the truth in a hand he would not despise later. Bring 7, Saran said softly, a benediction, and an audit. All of us. Raptor-One tipped her nose toward the thread only the Accord could pluck. The path took hold, a pressure you feel in the teeth more than on the skin, and the ship began to slide, dark and willing, toward a meeting placed precisely on the edge between caution and need. Somewhere beyond the nebula's last green veils, a pocket of quiet waited that was not the Autom's. Not silence. Room. Behind them, the heat sail drifted like a decoy heartbeat. Ahead, Accord unfolded, and the circle missing a finger's width promised to remain so. For breath, for choice, for the things you cannot carry today, but might learn tomorrow.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to be notified about upcoming releases to the Raptor-One series, please subscribe. This has been a Bad Karma Drone production.